We wanted this space that was totally outside the realms of familiarity and yet was connected to so many things that were familiar, right? We hadn't seen it before, yeah. It was something that we saw like in the world, in walls, and museums is how we experience art. But a real like living community of artists seemed something that we really, really desired. Even the university is like this moment of growth, and then you're like out into the world, and it's like now you're what? Like, you're gonna be a writer? I just like, like went to a university and got an amazing degree and like studied writing, like, and now I'm gonna like, what am I gonna do? Right? I'm just like gonna leave college and just start writing fiction. Like, what are my stories? What am I responding to? Who are the people that I'm engaging with? What's my community look like? What was unique is that all the stories, all the potential, all the characters, their addresses, every tiny minutia of detail is already written in the world. It doesn't need to be made up. And it all exists within this building.
Yeah.
There's just that much stuff in here that every single little detail and possibility can come from truth. It's just a matter of rearranging them to tell the story that you want to tell. Hi, my name is George Shear. I'm co-founder and director of Elsewhere, a living museum and artist residency set inside of a former thrift store downtown Greensboro. I was a writer, and I was doing this writing workshop called Collaborative Fiction, and the idea was to go into public spaces, explore characters, people that were there, create these sort of characters, and then come back to the group and try to write them into the same story. And so in the midst of that, myself and Stephanie came down along with our friend Josh Boyette, and we came down to Greensboro actually for a concert. The next morning, so after the concert the next morning, I was like, you gotta check out my grandmother's old store. It's been locked up for 6 years, and no one knows what to do with it. And that became really the fascinating moment. What if we were to come down here and move into the store and decide that nothing would be for sale and nothing would leave, and instead treat it like this massive puzzle, or this sort of singular set, this archive for which every part is necessary and holds so much potential, and then through a process of arranging and rearranging, produce and create this thing that instead of perhaps characters or narratives, we would have different communities. And the communities would come in and transform the space according to their needs. It would be sort of an autopoietic system in a way. So then to step into this store and say, actually everything that's here is of value, everything that's here needs to remain. The history is embedded in this place. It is an archive and a time capsule of 60 years of this town, and also 60 years of like America.
Yeah.
And rather than like sell this stuff or get rid of it or put it away or turn it into a stale museum, we're actually going to invite some of the most creative, critical, engaged minds of our generation to come in and use these things to make works that become publicly available and interactive and engaged, and at the same time rethink what the museum can be in the 21st century, to rethink what interactivity and participation and community engagement can be, not with like fancy technologies and $1 million budgets, but just like by simply engaging this historical archive and space.
So collection is materials that were found by George and Steph when they entered the space in 2003. A further explanation is that those collection is materials that Sylvia Gray, George's grandmother, purchased between 1939 and 1997. The rules are somewhat dependent on the materials, but essentially everything is to be treated as a natural resource. But this is flexible because it's like, say someone is in love with this one piece of wood and they really need this one corner that just speaks to them. So through the proposal process, that's when we get an opportunity to talk through some of those things. It should definitely be the source of inspiration, the raw resource. Yeah, because we do let, like, we have, currently we have a lot of artists interested in new kinds of media that just didn't exist before 1997.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the, like, lighting technology that, say, Jane is working with.
Yeah.
So in order to accommodate, a new era for Elsewhere, we have to you know, basically we ask them to use material. Sometimes we do bring in new things.
But you're blending the new and old.
Yeah.
Like she's using these old mirrors,
Right.
these rooms, and
Right.
combining them with
Right.
what's already here.
So the residents are working around the clock because they really, really, really live here, but they know that the staff is here from 11 to 7. And so, you know, around 11, we usually group up, or people are like in the kitchen in the dining area eating breakfast, and have like a moment of touch base. So I'll meet with the artists and check in about where, you know, seeing where they're at. And then they work throughout the day, meeting, you know, with whoever can answer their questions or fulfill their needs, whatever they are. And then 5 o'clock, people usually start getting ready to wind down, go on their dinner cruise if they have dinner shifts. And then we have dinner together as a group at 7. And then that's sort of like once the artists have gotten started, that's their kind of day to day. So the first floor is our public museum. It is the most public space, people that visit. And then on the second floor, it's locked, the second floor, that's where residents live.
And could you describe their living arrangements? Or?
Sure. They have little, basically, it's a former boarding house. So there's all these rooms that are connected with a doorway. And then within each room, there are these tiny little nooks, little bed nooks. So they have like, you know, like a screen or a wall. And everybody has a little bed nook, but there's like about, you know, two people in a room.